What's up, people? Today I want to go over cost of ownership of a car and more specifically, is it worth it to actually own a car rather than just taking an Uber every day to work and back and everywhere? And to make it short, if you're in my exact situation, then buying a car is just not worth it. But to go a little more in depth on that, there's many costs associated with the car that most people don't consider when buying one. And obviously, in the past, especially in this country, there really wasn't another option. Back before Uber and Lyft entered the market, you just couldn't get a cab every day to get to work and get back and have that actually be a viable solution. Now, if it were a viable solution, you'd probably be better off just walking because you're that close to work. But let's break that down for a little. And one of the main costs with a car is insurance. And it's also one that people don't consider before buying a car, but it's one that most people really factor in because generally, unless you're 18 and buying your first car or whatever age you are, unless you're buying your first car, you're probably paying for insurance pretty much since you're 18. So that's what most people consider, and it's a monthly bill, so it's very visible. Maintenance, it's not. And people don't really consider that because it's sporadic and people don't consider what it costs really. So maintenance is everything from cooling fluid to windshield wiper fluid to brake fluid to transmission fluid to other fluids, tires, brakes, all that. You're going to have these costs regardless of how good or bad your car is. You're going to be replacing your brakes, or at least the brake pads, every like 60,000 miles. You're going to replace the tires depends on how good of tires you get. You're going to change your oil. You're going to, put in windshield wiper fluid unless your wipers are broken or you live in California where there's no rain ever. And then there's repairs, which you really should factor in, but they're less visible and you really don't have a good idea of what that's going to be like down the road. It's the same with home repairs and other stuff that people don't really have a good idea about, but you kind of still need to factor it in. And then obviously there's the car, and that's all people consider this as the cost of the car. And to throw some numbers on there, insurance $150 is for, if you get everything. Like, say you buy a brand new car, you get all the insurance that you can get, including gap insurance and full coverage and everything you can get. Mine even has 24-hour roadside assistance, even though I think I get 24-hour roadside assistance from somewhere else as well. But I pay even more than those $150. You can certainly get that down by just getting liability, but I generally don't advocate for that because if you do get in a wreck, especially if you get in a wreck with an uninsured motorist, you can pay a lot out of pocket for things that their insurance should have been covering, especially like if it's not your fault, obviously. If it's your fault, then liability only insurance also does not take care of your car. So don't skimp on insurance because you need it eventually, probably, and when you need it the most, you kind of don't want to cheap out on that. Maintenance $50. Again, brakes, tires, oil changes tend to get expensive. Everything else is just like, maybe $5 a month at best. Repairs, $25. This really depends, and I could have just as well taken that off, because it really depends on what car you buy. But if you just throw that into the car, then like there's an inverse relationship with the age of the car. If you buy a very old car, you tend to pay more for repairs. If you buy a really new car, you tend to buy less for repairs. But the new car is obviously more expensive. So, not that it's a zero-sum game. You tend to be far better off buying an older car up to a certain point, which depends on the brand, but could be 15 years out. But it obviously needs to be factored in. And the cost of the car, $275, should get you a decent car if you have good credit, and a subpar car if you have poor credit. But you probably don't get a car way cheaper than that. Obviously, it's best if you have bought the car 5 years ago and you have now paid it off, and that completely drops. But obviously, you don't really calculate the cost of owning a car versus Uber if you already have a car, especially when it's almost paid off. So the total comes to about $500. And to break that down, you generally work 21 days a month. So that's about $20 a day, or a work day. So if you spend $10 getting to work and $10 getting home, you're still cheaper than owning a car. Now, if it's that close, buying a car probably still makes sense. Maybe get a cheap car. Because if you're spending $10, you're probably within 10-15 miles of your place of work. And if the car does break down and needs to be in the shop, you probably don't spend that much more money to get an Uber back and forth, right? And obviously, there's an inverse relationship with distance to the workplace and cost of the car, where it breaks even with getting an Uber every day. So if you, let's say you spend $5 getting to and from work every day, so $10 a work day, that'll put you $210 per month. If you go out one day a week, that'll put you at another 40-ish. So you're right at $250 a month. And I highly doubt that you can get any car with the total cost of ownership for that much. So anything under $5 getting to and from work, you're most definitely better off not getting a car and just getting an Uber or getting a Lyft every day. Anything between $250 and $500, or rather anything between $5 and $10 each way, could go either way. If it's over $10 each way, you're probably better off getting a car. And obviously, with distance increasing, you obviously also don't want to take an Uber every day. You probably want to drive your own car and, be by yourself, probably. And at that point, the car becomes the asset and actually saves you money. So between $5 and $10, it could go either way. You're gonna have to look at it more, but under $5, it's almost certainly cheaper to just get an Uber every day.